All right, sir. It looks like we are live on Facebook. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. The Master Kaluzny, he's lurking in the corner.
Making faces at you.
Yeah, he just walked in. Oh, here he comes. So, Master Fattori, I want to thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Hi, Master Kaluzny.
Hello, sir. How are you? Awesome. I just have two questions before I leave.
Yes.
One is who's your favorite master?
Oh.
And two, why am I?
What was the second one?
Why am I?
Why is it him?
I actually wrote that down. I have like a volume dedicated to you and your greatness.
Awesome.
So the next interview, I'll read it.
Thank you. I can be your thesis for a 7th time.
Yeah.
I got to get ready for class.
All right, great. Take care.
Sir.
Come soon.
There's never a dull moment with Master Kaluzny around. So again, thank you for joining me, sir. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you said you just recently got back from work.
Yeah.
So thanks.
You're welcome.
You see you have your, I like your name there, the Region 8 R8 Director / OVP.
Yeah, I got two hats at the moment. We'll see how long that stays that way.
Have you had to wear both of them a lot lately, or?
Well, formally, the OVP job started June 1st, but Grandmaster Strong had me working before that date. Yeah, you know, not too much going on in the region right now, as you know, for obvious reasons. But just the discussions and planning about how we're going to get people tested. Are we going to be able to have the September test? What's Kalahari look like? I mean, all those things continue. Yeah, so it's been busy.
I guess once it was posted on Facebook, you know, you're up.
Right. Right.
So I'd like to go ahead and just get started with maybe going back to when you first started in the martial arts and how you made your way to the martial arts and just kind of go from there.
Yeah. It's funny, I watched Master Robinson's interview, and he and I had the same motivation. We were both fans of the Kung Fu TV series with David Carradine, and I was not an athlete. I was like skinny and fast, but I never considered myself an athlete. Doing anything like the martial arts was like going to be totally foreign to me. But I loved that TV series, not so much for the fighting, but the philosophy, the meditation, and the seemingly impossible things a human can do as a result of their training and self-discipline. So that interested me. And at the time I was working at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, it's 1978. So I had a steady income and I was working day shift, so my evenings were free. And a friend that I was working with, when I mentioned I'd be interested in martial arts, he said, hey, there's this Korean guy teaching in Drexel Hill. And I lived in West Philadelphia at the time, and that's not too far away. So just not talking to anyone about it, not really knowing what the art of Tung Sudo was, I walked into Kwan's Karate, and in October, I believe, of 1978, and watched the class, sat in his office, told him my name. We exchanged some pleasantries, and he said, oh, this was his sales pitch to me. He said, oh, Fattori, he said, you're Italian. And I said, yes. And he said, Italians are built like Koreans. You'll be good at karate. I was sold, right? I was sold from that point on. And yeah, so that's how I got started, 1978. I was 23.
23. Okay. I was 20. So I think I looked at that. I was 21 when I started. So we were pretty close to the same age.
Yeah.
I think nowadays to think of someone starting Tang Soo Do at that age, it's kind of like the unicorns.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's such a difference from back then to now?
In terms of like the age of students, like and when you
Yes.
start,
Yeah.
um, you know, I think the way the art was presented, it was strenuous. It was strict. There was a lot of discipline, and it was tough. I mean, classes were really tough. Um, and if you went to look at a karate class, you wouldn't think this is for a 5-year-old or this is for a 10-year-old. Now there were, like, I think Master Casarano, he started when he was 12, right? And there were some, they had children's classes, they had youth classes, but the majority were adults. And I think something maybe, if I had to guess just by my experience at Master Kwan's, 60 to 70% adults, right? So the vast majority were adult students. And then I think as years went by and you recognized, well, you could teach children if you modified the way you presented it, then the numbers started to even out. And now we're probably more youth and teenagers than adults.
Yeah, it's probably completely flipped from what you said.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was going to mention Master DeMarco, and it looks like he's watching. When I had the interview with him, he said that when he started, Master Casarano was in the kids class. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where I met Master DeMarco. I met Master Casarano, Master Minelli, Master Durkle, because Master Kwan's brother, young Hook Kwan, was also teaching. And both Kwans were very capable and produced some really, really, really good students, Master Durkle, Master DeMarco, and names that just have gone away. Like one of my friends, Joe Romano, was one of the most naturally gifted athletes and karate technicians I knew, but he blew out his knee after he got his Edon, and basically, that kind of messes you up. But I still keep in touch with him. He lives in the Poconos now. So there are many, many students. If you look at the charter member list in the manual, you may not recognize the names, but when I read the names, there are many, many Kwan students that were black belts at that time.
Gotcha. Could you talk about, you just talked about the Kwans a little bit. What was the training like with them back then?
I think most people, and I've heard you interview other people, most people say the training was tough. The classes were long. There was no air conditioning. Sometimes there was like no heat. We trained in the dojang where I did most of my training, which was in Springfield after he moved from Drexel Hill. It was a linoleum floor. It had a little bit of give, but it was a hard floor. And when you started to sweat, you slid, right? I mean, there was sweat all over the floor. Classes, if I remember correctly, were 2 hours. So I started training at 7, get done by 9. Typically covered most of what I would say is the Tang Soo Do curriculum. So class started with meditation, it ended with meditation. We did forms, we did sparring, we did one-step self-defense, breaking. Breaking was an equal part of those 5 components in class. So you've heard Master Vaughn lecture often how important breaking is. And it was an important component of your training because it emphasized your ability to focus, your speed, your power, and your commitment. Right. So all very important things. So the training was hard. It was hard for me because I had done nothing like that in my life. I was, not on a baseball team or football team in high school or anything like that. Did a stint on the track team for a little while, but this whole concept of martial arts was new to me. I remember the first class. Now, in a 2-hour class, you can afford to do a long warm-up. So we would start by running around the dojang, or running outside in the parking lot, which in all kinds of weather, which was an adventure because there was broken glass, there was gravel. In the winter, there was ice. You're always barefoot. So my first class, we started running, and then the command came to run backward. Now, I don't know if you remember the first time you ever did any serious running backward, but for me, that was a new experience. The next day, I couldn't flex my feet, my calves. My calves were so sore just from that simple thing of running backwards. So, I knew I was in for a challenge, and then as you got a little bit better, we used to rotate sparring. So the seniors used to line up, and you would start and rotate through the senior ranks. And there were people I stood in front of that I couldn't hit. There was no way I could hit them. And even if I hit them, it hurt me. I mean, they were so strong and powerful. People like Don Hawkins and Connie Hawkins. And I mean, it was just an experience.
Wow. Master Angel Salona asked if you ever trained with Master Raver.
Oh, yeah. I trained with Master Raver. Master Raver, certainly we did a lot of training together when I was training with Master Casarada. Yeah, Master Raver was good. I used to hate to fight him because I hate to fight tall people. When when you fight someone who's taller and has some skill, it's a big challenge. But yeah, and we had a lot of good times together, me and Ron Raver.
Yes, my instructor is Master Maybroda. I know all about the people with long legs.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people saying hi. Got Jeff Annis from Great Britain Tunxedo says hello.
Nice.
Master Midas, Mr. Lyons, George and Debbie Berardi from Region 9 say hello.
Yeah.
So going back, you said that you didn't do a lot of physical activity. I saw on a master's profile that you were a musician. And I don't think I ever knew that about you. What did you do as a musician?
Yeah, so if you think about it, that's like anti-athleticism, right? So if you're probably too young, but if you grew up through the 60s and 70s, that culture was kind of unique back then. So I started playing when I was in 5th grade, and I believe I was in a band from the time I was in 6th grade until 2 years out of high school. And started playing just by chance. My mom's mom, my grandmother, came back from a trip to Italy, brought back an accordion. And I happened to be, even though I was small, the oldest grandson and able to hold this accordion. And I had no interest, it was just, here, your grandmother bought you this, learn how to play. And so that's how I got into music. And then those lessons on the accordion, because the music is the same, translated to the organ and then piano. So I've been playing keyboards of all sorts since I was like in seventh or 8th grade. Yeah.
I was hoping you said I was hoping you were going to be like pictures of you in the band with the accordion.
No. There are some pictures of me in the band. I'll have to show you sometime.
What type of music did you play?
We played a lot of different music. In fact, the drummer, John, remains my best friend. And I think we went to kindergarten together. We were in every grade together. So we're close friends. And we were talking last week about the depth of what we call our book, the songs that we know that we can play. And we figured there were over 300. So at any given time, we had 300 songs in the repertoire that we can play. And we were not so interested in like pop or popular music. So we played like some avant-garde stuff. We were really big into the Allman Brothers and Yes, and bands that you'll have to go look up if I tell you their names. We did a complete set of the Beach Boys because we played down in Avalon, New Jersey for 2 full summers in 74 and 75. And what really hurt the band, what killed us, was disco. Because, you know, it was hard to get a gig if you could not play disco music. And we just refused. We just couldn't stop. We couldn't do it. None of us liked it. That and being together with a bunch of guys for year after year after year. I mean, finally just wore itself out. And then we looked at each other and we were like half broke most of the time. We said, all right, we have to get real jobs. You know, we have to get real jobs. But there's some musicians that played in that band that are still musicians and doing quite well.
Do you play at all anymore?
Oh yeah, I play all the time. I'm sitting here looking. I have 4 keyboards now. I have a piano. I have 2 synthesizers and a Hammond organ. So it's not uncommon for me to come down here almost every evening, spend an hour or 2, and just play.
Excellent. When I did the interview with Master Marco, he talked about he got the opportunity to play in a band with Master Wiskin and Grandmaster Bodwin.
Uh-huh.
So maybe one of these times you can catch up with him. Maybe get Matt Hutchison on the bagpipes.
Master Claus, Rob Claus, he suggested that we form a tongue pseudo band at the adult clinic in Region 8, which is possible. I mean, we could. That would be fun.
Yeah, I know he plays the drums, and actually Master Paluzzi plays the drums as well.
Yeah,
we got a drum kit in the band.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are many guitarists and bassists out there and people who love to sing. That would be fun.
Master George Shalona asked any Genesis or King Crimson.
No, actually, not Genesis. Genesis would have been really difficult to pull off in the club, although some of the Yes music we played, there's a song called Long Distance Runaround. George may know.
I do.
The time signature of that song, you can't dance to it. And we would play it. We would play it in the club and watch people try to dance to this song, and we would just laugh. We would just laugh on stage. But yeah, no Genesis that I remember. No King Crimson, although the song In the Court of the Crimson King, I can play.
Oh.
But we didn't play it in the band.
Nice. I just want to say again, hello to everyone watching. Master Amarin from South Africa says hello. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to post them. I want to go back to right around the time you got your black belt, which was before the charter convention, right? Was it?
Yeah, it was 1981.
Okay.
I tested at Burlington, New Jersey, at Grandmaster Shin's headquarters. Funny thing about that, 3 years ago, before that, I had met Master Kevin Tollerman from Region 9. But 3 years ago, we were talking at the Masters Clinic, and we're looking at our Don numbers. His Don numbers is a couple digits senior to me. And he said, when did you get promoted? I said, 1981. He goes, me too. He goes, where'd you test? I said, I tested in Burlington in the summer in 81. He goes, me too. I mean, we were there. We were there together, strangers at the time, but it's funny. It's funny how those things collide.
Yeah, actually, I got some time to spend with Master Joe Skoda, and he was telling me how you guys grew up in the same neighborhood and you had no idea.
Yes. I was at dinner in North Carolina, and we just started talking, and we started talking about grade school and where we grew up. And he's mentioning these streets in my neighborhood, and I'm like, well, what school? And he said, St. Donatus. I said, that's where I went. I mean, it is a small world. It is truly a small world.
Awesome. So obviously in 1982, as the charter convention happened, could you talk about the anticipation and kind of things leading up to that time and maybe some stories about that event?
Well, in terms of anticipation, I knew that it was going to be a special thing. We had all talked about it, and I knew I was going to be a part of it, but I was a part of it as a relatively new black belt and not at all attached to what was happening in the association, right? So people that were of higher rank and maybe more connected, like Master Casarano, like Master Durkle, might have had a different feeling about what this was going to mean. Me, I just went, I showed up, I trained, took a lot of photographs, watched a lot of incredible things happening. And at the time, you don't think about its relevance, right, or its importance. But looking back on it, I was so lucky just to be there in that moment of time. I remember bong forms. I remember dagger form, like things being brought up and created. We talked about the color of the belts. Yeah, it was a special time because at that time, like, I don't know how many Samdan there were, but there were not many Samdan. I mean, if you were in the presence of Samdan, that was like, you were like, I'll never be that. That is so special. Like, how did that happen? And we had some very special Samdans, very, very talented people at that time. And, certainly gathered there were more masters than I ever saw. And it wasn't uncommon for us, even at Gup Test, to have Grandmaster Shin come and other Korean masters come from New Jersey, New York. So, you get used to seeing 3, 4, 5 masters, but, nothing like the gathering that was there at the convention.
Who did you get a chance to take class from, like learning this new staff form and the dagger form? Do you remember who you got?
No, I remember watching Master Durkle. I remember certainly my instructor did a segment on Ilsu Sik on the one steps. And it's a story. It's not a great story, but number 8 elbow strike at that time in the one steps, he had a female partner, and she was unaware of what number 8 was and what was going to happen. So she turned her head into his elbow, and she went away with a big black eye. And I'm like, ooh, geez, that's not too nice. She's got a story to tell.
Yeah. Mrs. Master Watson has a story from number 9 on the one steps doing the videos. She got whacked right in the face by Stephanie Marbrook.
Uh-huh.
Right on video.
Yeah.
So once the association started, again, I know you said you were a pretty young black belt. How long did you continue to train with the Kwans?
I pre-tested for Edon, and then around that time, there was turmoil going on. There were some things going on at the Dojang that many of us thought weren't fair. There was discussion about what Grandmaster Shin was going to do later on. So, yeah, that relationship, although I had a great relationship with Master Kwan, it was best at the time for me to get out. Eventually, so did everyone else. And, Master Casarano had been my friend for many, many years. That's one thing. There were a lot of Italians in the martial arts, especially in that area at training at Kwan's. So it was easy to make friends because, ethnically, you had the same stories. Whenever you went over somebody's house, the mom was always trying to feed you. It was like, it was comfortable, very comfortable. So it was easy to make friends. And just from that training, over those few years, I still have great friends, that I met there in the dojo.
Yeah, so Master DeMarco, Master Manelli,
Yeah.
obviously Master Casarano.
Yeah.
Once Master Kazurano opened his dojang, did you get a chance? Did you train there often?
Oh yeah. Um, I was always kind of on the periphery, sometimes not training formally. Carmen Manelli would call me up. Frank, you got to come back. Frank, you got to come back. Frank, you got to come back. I'd call Master Caserano, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just sitting home and not doing anything. Come on in. Come on in tonight. Come on." They actually are the reason I'm here. They would not let me go. And Master Caserano, I miss him every day. We would talk 3 to 5 times a day. I'm serious. He'd be sitting in his dojang. He'd get there at 10:30, 11 o'clock. I'd be at work. He'd have nothing to do until 4. So if he was reading the paper or the phone ring, Frank, there's a beer festival in Philadelphia Saturday. It would be like, or hey, did you watch the Three Stooges Saturday morning? He was a big Three Stooges fan. Yeah. So he would say, come train tonight. And I'd say, and in person, I called him Mark, but Master Caserano in front of everybody else. I'd say, Mark, man, my knee's killing me. My back hurts. Ah, come on. We won't do any jump kicks. We'll take it easy. We'll take it easy. And I go to class and he'd say Chumbi. And it was like we never talked. It was like we never had the conversation. And it would be jump kicks and target kicks and flying things. And yeah.
That's what friends are for.
Good guy. He's a good guy.
That's how I got started in the martial arts. Master Priest started about a year before me, and he was like, "Look, my instructor keeps giving me grief for not coming to class because I'm hanging out playing video games with you. Just come to class with me."
Right.
So I did.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out.
One of my favorite memories from Black Belt Camp was when you showed the video of Master Kazurano's grand opening, and you were doing a staff form, and I got the opportunity to train with you on that Sunday morning and work that staff form, which I actually just recently tried to find that video, and I can't seem to find the video of that.
Yeah, a couple people have it. I have it somewhere. I haven't done it for a while, but it was a demo form, and I remember Grandmaster Shin was there, and I think Master Caserano says, "Frank, you're going to do that. You're going to do the staff form." There is no Frank, you're going to do the staff form. So I remember being a little bit shy. In fact, if I remember correctly, rewatching that, I don't think I key-upped once in that form because I was so intent on not making a mistake. Yeah, that was the exciting time.
That's cool. And like I said, that was a fun for me. I was probably a Samdan, but it was me and I think Master Javid and Master Townsley from Great Britain.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool. I still remember getting called up. You called me up before Qigong. And I was like, "Oh no, what did I do?" You're like, "Go grab a staff." Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Was a lot of fun. So we've talked about obviously the beginning of the World Tang Soo Do Association, but actually I haven't talked a lot about Grandmaster Shin yet. Mr. Lyons asked, he said favorite Kwanjin Shin story. If you want to share that, you can, or maybe just share some thoughts and memories of Grandmaster Shin.
The one thing that sticks in my mind when I finally tested for Idan, I was a Chodan for 13 or 15 years. So when I tested for Idan, Master Caserano had told me after the test, the story. Grandmaster Shin was going through the Don applications, the score sheets, and he was going through names, just looking, and he saw my name. And one thing about Master Caserano, he did not promote his students, right? He probably didn't even tell Grandmaster Shin that I was testing. So Grandmaster Shin saw my name and called me out, called my name to stand up and pointed to me and said, "This is an example of determination and dedication," in front of everybody testing, which is, why would Grandmaster Shin remember my name? Kind of thing. The other thing I think of is he always treated me with respect. Didn't have to, right? I mean, I'm sure I gave him headaches because sometimes I'd have suggestions or ideas that I know he didn't like, but he never yelled at me, and he was capable of yelling. I mean, there are other people who have stories about being tossed out of his office. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I remember him being very respectful to me, um, and he had a great sense of humor. And I think that the Koreans half laughed at us. I'll say the Italians because we're always clowning around, and half laughed with us, right? So they joined in that sense of humor that we had. I have one really good story about Grandmaster Shin that I've told before. Um, my first year as a candidate, coming back from Alabama, I'm completely exhausted. Um, I think it was 2004, and we go from Huntsville to Cincinnati to somewhere where there was a time change, a 1 hour change, but all of us are hungry, and all we want to do is eat. And there were like maybe 12, 15 of us traveling together. Grandmaster Shin was traveling with us, and he turns to me and he says, "Do we have time to eat?" And I look at my watch, which is wrong for the time zone. I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Yeah, we have plenty of time." So we go to the restaurant, we order. Master Casarano has to go to the men's room. Master Jesse Dunn is somewhere with Master Richards, I think. And I get a phone call, and it's Master Casarano saying, they just called final boarding for our flight. And I'm saying, "What are you talking about? We still have an hour." No, no, no. They called final boarding. So we're like, okay, what do we do? So we go to the gate, and it's dark. Everyone's gone. Plane is gone. And Jesse Dunn and Master Richards, they got on it. They, they, they never bothered to run back and get us. So we have to spend, so there's no other flights out, and we have to spend the night. And I'm just feeling terrible, and I'm walking with Grandmaster Shin and everyone else now because now we have to take taxis to some motel. And I call my wife because it's Sunday and I'm supposed to be at work on Monday, and both the kids were little. And I said, "Hey, Deb," I said, "I'm not making it home tonight." And she's like, "What do you mean, right? We missed the plane." And naturally, she was very upset because she had to go to work the next morning too. So, she's letting me know she's upset. I have the phone here between me and Grandmaster Shin. I get off the phone. He goes, "Wife upset?" I said, "Yes, sir. I was supposed to be home tonight." He said, "What did you tell her?" I said, "I told her we missed the plane." And he starts laughing. He says, "You no tell her you missed plane. You say airline cancel flight." And it was like perfect. He didn't have to make it up. He just knew that was what you should have said, Frank. You're a foolish guy. You have much to learn. And then he told me certainly he encountered that situation many, many, many times. I'm sure Mrs. Shin probably heard the same story.
Yeah, right.
But it was a classic Grandmaster Shin. Always had the right answer.
I feel like everyone that has either traveled with Grandmaster Shin or Grandmaster Bodwin has a story like that. Master Fairley talked about being in Latin America and they lost a wheel on the bus they were on.
Yeah.
But like you said, you now, obviously your wife is not happy at that point, but you have a funny story to share.
Correct. And we all survived.
Yeah.
We got home.
So since you just talked about, you mentioned your family. I know your son Frank has trained for years and is a Samdan. Did anyone else in your family train?
No. Gabby did as a tiny tiger, but I think only to like orange belt or green belt. She was, it's funny. You'd have targets down and you teach balance, and the kids would hop from target to target. And every time she hopped, she would stop and fix her hair and she'd hop again. So she danced, though. She was a good dancer. She danced for at least, I think, 12 years. Yeah, but Frankie's good. He's twice as good as I ever was. He's very talented.
Is he still training?
Yeah, well, he's here now, but at Pittsburgh. So he's at the University of Pittsburgh. So when he comes back, he trains, and he and I will drive to Master Midas's. And a couple weeks ago, we went over to Master Fisher's on a Saturday afternoon.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Tuesday afternoon, and went through our forms and stuff like that. But yeah.
At some point, Master Midas said he'll watch the rest later. Some of us have to teach classes.
Oh yeah. Tell him he's excused.
As soon as I get off of here.
Yeah, tell him he's excused.
He's excused, yes. That's the regional director. So as far as being the Region 8 director, can you tell, when did you get that role and how did that come about?
Master Midas, who had been the regional coordinator under Grandmaster Shin for, I don't know, 20 years maybe, long time, had been trying to get out of the job because his son Marcus is a skater, and he was driving Marcus all over creation to go to practices all times a day, go to different states for competitions, and plus he had a full-time dojo, right? So it was a lot of restraint, plus coordinator of the largest region. So he was trying to slide out of that job, and Grandmaster Shin wouldn't let him. And I think it took a couple years to convince Grandmaster Shin that he had done it long enough. So there was a short list of candidates who could be coordinator, and I was selected. And let's see, Master Midas called me and said, Frank, this is Grandmaster Shin wants you to do this, right? So I'm like, wow. I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. And he goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Everything's already decided. Master Peterman does the tournaments. I do the adult clinic. We do the Grandmaster Shin organizes this, the testing, and I'll talk you through it. I'll mentor you, blah, blah, no problem, no problem, no problem. So Grandmaster Shin calls me, tells me he wants me to do the job, says some nice things about me when I asked him why he picked me. And he says that we will work together because he was going to North Carolina. So it was the first time in his life, really, that he was going to be outside of Region 8 as his home. So I felt honored by that because, to be chosen to lead the region that was his home, and his region, there was no way I was going to let him down. Unfortunately, 6 months later, he passed away, and that relationship ended. And then I was approved by the board to be the director, right? So as far as I know, I think I'm the second director of Region 8. And at first it seemed like an impossible task, and who's going to fill Grandmaster Shin's shoes as director of the region? And I'm so grateful to Master Midas, and I mean, the team, the team we have, your wife, right? Master Peterman, Master Heiss, Master Sanyantus, both of them, the Artikas, Jen Leno. I mean, so many people, Master Priest, and the people they followed, whether former secretaries, former treasurers. I mean, that made it possible. That made it possible for the region to actually perform, I believe, perform better than it ever had with in terms of membership, the efficiencies of our events, the revenue that's produced from our events. And that's not because of me. That's because of all the people who stepped up. The other thing that that I was a little bit worried about. I mean, I was by far not the senior master in the region. I mean, Region 8 has more 7th dans than any other region, more masters than any other region. And luckily, because of my long time relationship in the association, I know many people. I knew all the senior masters, and more importantly, they knew me. And I think they had a confidence in me. You know, they believed I wasn't going to screw things up, and they stepped up and supported me, because without senior master support, a job like this is impossible to do.
I actually didn't know how shortly after when you took that job that Grandmaster Shin passed away.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to have all of those people in place. It's no surprise that Region 8 has been as successful as it is, because like you said, we all felt the responsibility to continue on that legacy that Grandmaster Shin started. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that all those people were responsible and continue to be responsible for the growth of our region.
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, I tried to do it with basically Master Nicole Kuhlman was running the championships. We had a secretary of the club, and we had a treasurer. And you know, every once in a while, other people would get involved. Master Midas and others would help with the camps, but that turned out to be impossible to do. There weren't enough people involved. In fact, today there are more people involved in regional events and regional administration than ever before, and it's unfortunate we don't have more roles, because there's so many talented people and so many people who want to step up and do something. It's not infrequent that I'll get calls or texts, "What do you need me to do, sir? Is there something I can do? Do you have a job for me?" And I wish we did have more.
We're talking about having relationships throughout, Region 8 and beyond. I know you've had the opportunity to do some traveling to teach. Specifically, I just picture you in boots in Texas.
Oh yeah, those are nice boots.
Yeah.
They're very nice boots. Yeah, I do wear them every once in a while. Yeah, you know, Texas is a unique country. Master Sharp and his wife are gracious hosts. Master Pat West and a lot of good instructors and masters down there. But I haven't been too many places. You know, I mean, we took a family vacation to Aruba, and Frankie and I brought our dough box, and we did teach and connect with,
Yeah.
Yes. And so that was nice. Been to some other regions to teach. But, you know, I think as OVP, some of my responsibilities will involve a little bit more travel. And hopefully, fingers crossed, if our family situation stays the way it is, I'll get to retire finally from my hospital job at the end of the year. And that'll free me up. So I'm looking forward to that.
Master Fisher says your boots complement your legs.
Yes, well, you know, you can't find boots tight enough for my calves. They're like Master Fisher. We have very thin legs. True. He is disproportioned also.
I mean, Master Mukherjee always talks about you can't skip leg day. I think that's his thing with him, Master Sharp. It must be because of the boots. So let's talk about it's Operational Vice President is the new title, correct?
Yes.
I'm assuming you're starting to protect the Achilles. That's what Master Fisher said.
It's another story. Yeah.
So obviously there was interviews and you got chosen to be it's the first one, right? This is a new.
Yeah.
Talk about that. As far as you talk about, you seem to be that guy that comes in. You got Grandmaster Shin, and then you became the Region 8 director, and then we had the unfortunate passing of Grandmaster Bodwin, and we've made this So you're the guy.
Well, it had nothing to do with the timing.
Right.
Grandmaster Bodwin and I discussed at Kalahari how we both kind of wound up in this predicament of of needing to take on roles because Grandmaster Shin was gone. Both of us kind of caught off guard, as many of us were. So about 2 years ago, I started to think about the structure of the association, and knowing what I know of span of control in terms of management and organizational charts, it was obvious to me that no matter who you had as the president, and even someone as talented as Grandmaster Strong, we have 23 regions. 18 of them are active, so there's 18 directors. Those 18 directors technically report to the president. Well, that span of control is too big. And if you really want to mentor, coach, advise, review, evaluate regional directors, that's too many. No one can do it. In fact, in most organizations, you won't find the president with 18 direct reports. There are usually other layers, right? So it took me about 2 years to drive that concept forward. And last year at Kalahari, Grandmaster Bodwin and Strong both said, yes, this is needed, let's do it. So it took from then until this year to kind of get the application out. The job description was written, the interviews were conducted, and there were I think 6 people that applied, 3 were interviewed, and I got the job. So yeah, so we'll transition the directorship of Region 8 eventually. I guess for the rest of the year, I'll still be director, but hopefully within the next month or two, I'm hoping the governance committee will act on some recommendations I've made for who might be director, and and then I can start my OVP job in earnest.
Congratulations on that again.
Thank you.
When I did the interview with Grandmaster Strong, he had actually had interviews like right before I interviewed him. So it's likely that one of the days that he talked with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually talking to him right now to do another interview with him on his writing of the Grandmaster Shin book.
Oh, great. That should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. And very gracious. One of the things that I've always admired about World Tong Soo Do is the leaders are always willing to share. And I think that you are right along with that. Like you said, you had so many people that help you and have shared with you coming up. And I have no doubt that whoever is picked for the Region 8 director will follow in your footsteps. And obviously, I'm sure still have some guidance from you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident. We have a lot of good people in Region 8. I've worked with many of them over these 8 years. It's been, I guess, formally as director, July will be 8 years. And yeah, I mean, I've mentioned a bunch of names before. I've failed to mention Master Salona, George Salona, and the work he does with the written test. Master Fisher's the technical coordinator. I mean, you know all these people. They work hard. They do a great job. Yeah, they're a credit to the region, really. The Region 8 has, if my numbers are correct, I think Region 8 has 25% of the students in the entire association. So it's a big deal. It's a burden, certainly a burden, but very proud that I was able to do that job and have some success.
Absolutely. I've talked with Gideon on numbers before in the past, and think the last time I talked, it's probably maybe a little more than that. We had about, I think, 97 or 98 code on jaw just in Region 8 alone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like you said, quite a few more as far as students and black belts go. So it's like you said, upkeeping to the tradition of Grandmaster Shin is of highest importance, I'm sure, to every single one of those people. I've heard you talk about Black Belt Clinic being your favorite or one of the favorite events of the year. And I know you waited till pretty much the last second to officially cancel that. Could you just, since we're not going to have one this year, could you share some memories of Black Belt camps of the past? I'm assuming you've been to most of them.
The black belt camps, that the adult black belt clinic in Region 8 is my favorite event. Because there's less, well, even before I was director, it was my favorite event. As director, I don't have the burden. Master Mamitis takes the burden of running the camp. I don't have to worry about guests. We don't typically have two grandmasters, so I don't have to host grandmasters. Don't have to worry about parents or spectators. So for me, it's kind of a relaxing time to just train and teach. My worst memories of camp were waking up on Saturday morning and sometimes Sunday morning, not being in the best of shape physically to start training. And there were some years that we were doing cardio kickboxing at 7 a.m. I don't know if you remember that.
No, that I've heard the stories of it.
And you'd be sore and you'd just be dehydrated and you'd be out there in the morning, regardless of the weather, doing cardio kickboxing. I did not like that at all. That was those
That led by.
and we would do. There was this one individual. I don't know his name, but he taught it, I think, for a couple of years. But once Master Mamitis got total control of the camps, we've modified it. We've made it more like lunch at the camp. I think was under an hour. You had under an hour to eat lunch. Grandmaster Shin had you out there at 7 a.m. and there were people. It was routine for people to fall asleep during the lectures in the gym, whether we were at Millersville or Elizabethtown or Albright. My favorite memories are when Master Casarano, if you were together with Master Casarano, he was going to be in a good mood. He was going to have jokes to tell. We laughed a lot. Just being with people and sort of like relaxing in the spirit of Tung Sudo. It was, they're still my favorite event. And I had many people telling me to cancel that in April. And I was just like you said, I was holding on hope that things would change. But yeah, we're going to do virtual. We're going to do a virtual black belt camp last weekend in June. Jen Leno and Master Mamitis are figuring that out. We'll have a couple training sessions on Saturday, maybe one or two on Sunday, followed by lectures.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. We're starting to wind down here. I want to talk about a couple other things. I know that you are a big fan of the sword, and you're kind of from what I can tell, an aficionado as far as swords. Could you talk about like where that came from as far as liking swords and?
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm nowhere near an expert, but when you get ready for Samdan, the sword, right? The sword makes its presence known, and I couldn't wait to be at a rank where I would be able to train with a sword. And at that time, there were no aluminum. We didn't have aluminum swords. We didn't have demo swords. we had a live blade, and Jangum, right? The long form. You learn Jangum with a live blade in your hand, which was pretty exciting. Yeah, it's one word I'll use. And I think, I've read it, a fair number of books on Japanese swordsmanship. So protocol, respect for the blade, those things I get from Japanese culture. Master Mike Kay, if you spend any time with Master Mike Kay, who just recently passed, he you can learn. Well, he had more knowledge about edged weapons than anyone I knew. So yeah, so we bonded over the sword. We did some cutting together. Yeah, I just think as a training tool, if you study the culture of the peoples who used swords, I mean it's worldwide, and if you study the Japanese culture or other cultures where that was a primary weapon, you can learn a lot, not only about the weapon but about the people, right? Because in certainly Japanese culture, that sword, the samurai, and the culture were intertwined. Yeah, but I do like training with the sword. I have too many, actually. My wife will tell you, no more sword buying. We're full up on swords.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask how many. A lot.
Yeah,
Again, if you're around long enough, they grab. It's the gravitational pull of weapons.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, so we're getting near that 1 hour mark. So I want to start to wrap things up. Is there anything out that we haven't touched base or any parting words that you'd like to share with us?
Probably nothing you haven't heard before. I think our association is really special. I think the people in it are special. The leadership is special. And I mean, I've never experienced anything like it. To have, now this is my 42nd year, right? Something like 40 years, 42 years. To begin 40 years ago and still be able to call the people I met the day I walked into the dojang, my friends, that's special. And I have many friends, and it's just been great to have the responsibility of leading what I think is the finest region in the association.
Excellent. I just noticed there's the picture over your shoulder. Is that a promotion picture over your left shoulder there?
This picture, I don't know. That's me.
Nice.
That's me and Master Casarano at Elizabethtown. I don't know what year. I was maybe still fourth dan. But you can see. I don't know if you can see his face. He's always laughing.
Yeah.
But, he probably said something funny to the guy taking the picture, and yeah.
What's funny is I never got to see that side of him. I was always on the student side, so I got the very serious. He obviously cracked jokes, but when it was time to train and Master Casarano was teaching,
you were in for a hard class. When he was teaching, he taught. Yeah.
I feel like him and I would have had things in common. I know he was a big fan of beer.
Yeah. And he loved food. I can tell you, not here, it's not appropriate. This man could eat anything in combination. In fact, I was not there, but at the dinner after Grandmaster Shin's service, he got a chicken wing and put it under the chocolate fountain. Right. I think they were at a Golden Corral or something. And he's taught Frankie how to eat combination of chocolate chip cookies, Oreos, and potato chips. all together, So yeah,
He was that one uncle.
he's that one uncle. Yep,
Crazy Uncle Master Calderano.
funny.
Awesome. Well, again, sir, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you taking the time out. I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to talk with you and everyone who's had the pleasure to talk to. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, Tong Su, thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I can send them to Master Fattori, or he can take a look at it when he gets a chance. And Tong Su, sir, thank you.
Kung Su, Master Watson, take care.
Thank you.